What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again today for another video in my basement. And the reason I'm in my basement is because it's late and I just want to get this video out and I don't want to wake anyone up, so I'm just going to do it quietly down here. Preseason Game 3 against the Detroit Red Wings in Detroit. There were some things I forgot to mention going into this preseason, and such as, for example, just minor things like the Hawks were wearing Rocky Wirtz patches because the owner of the Blackhawks, being Rocky Wirtz, passed away recently. It was still interesting how he died only at 70, and so just out of nowhere. Some waiver people. So the Hawks started with 50 fantasy footballs going off. That's why I usually have my camera on me. Remind me to do that next time. Anyway, they've already started to waive people and just send people out from training camp. They started with 55, and now they were at 45 going into this game. David Gust, Mike Hardman, and Brent Seney were some of those waived to go down to the minors. I also forgot to mention that assistant general manager Jeff Greenberg is now with the Tigers. He, of course, started his career with the Chicago Cubs, and so it was very, it was a bit of a loss. But we'll see who. Well, we know who's going to replace him. I don't remember his name, but we'll see if he does as well of a job. Samuel Savoie has had successful surgery on his right femur, which was injured in the game against Minnesota. His preseason is definitely done, and probably a good portion of the season with that. We'll see how it goes for him. Best of luck to him. I was really hoping he was going to crack the lineup because I actually thought he was going to be a in and out of the lineup player, healthy scratch, fourth line guy this season. The game was played on October 1st, 6:30. Now finally getting to the game. Score 6-1 Detroit. It was a mopping. Shots were 34-29 Detroit. Hits 24-11 Chicago. Faceoffs 23-20 Chicago. Power play, Chicago goes 0 for 6. They really need to fix that. But Detroit goes 1 for 3. Stauber saves 18 out of 23 before Comesso comes in. 10 out of 11. Of course, Stauber was probably our best goalie last season statistically. Had his worst performance of his career easily. Reimer saves 12 out of 12 before Alex Lyon comes in, newly acquired from Florida. Saves 16 out of 17. Lines. First line, Athanasiou, Bedard, and Radish. They put them together. Line 2 was Colton Dock, Lucas Reichel, and Gavin Hayes. Third line was Boris Kachuk, Mackenzie Entwistle, and Joey Anderson. Fourth line, Jason Dickinson, now wearing number 16. He wore number 17 last year. Ludwinski and Rolston. Ryder Rolston getting into a game there. On the defense, you have Del Mastro and Kaiser. It was a very young D-core, only one veteran on the lineup. But Del Mastro and Kaiser leading the way on the first pair. Alex Vlasic and Nikita Zaitsev on the second. Philip Ruse and Lucas Crevier on the third. Coming into the first period, Stauber has a save on Comfort early. Anderson, Reichel, and Kachuk are all denied, but at 17-14, it's a Detroit point-blank goal. Daniel Sprong gets his second of the preseason from Danielson and Bergeron. Makes it 1-0. Danielson was in for a game, I will say that. Kasper is denied. Detroit has the jump early. Sprong is stopped. The Red Wings in complete control, and that leads to an 8-3, a Detroit snipe goal from Michael Rasmussen. Second of the preseason from Comfort and Mata to make it 2-0, the former Blackhawk Mata getting in on the action. 7:47, Detroit penalty to Fisher for tripping, which would be killed, because at 6:14 it's a Chicago penalty to Dock for tripping, which would be killed, and that wasn't a great call, to be honest. 4-on-4 for 28 seconds there, and then there's a Detroit power play for, if it's 28, well then it must be 1:32 on the other end. However, Dickinson is a shorthanded breakaway, and it's a great save. But at 5:12, it's a Detroit penalty served by Perron for a delay of game, which was a bench violation, because it was a face-off violation. It was a whole... I was like, what's going on here? Perron's in the box. They said it was a face-off violation, which is considered delay of game bench violation. So it's 4-on-4 for a minute and 2 seconds before Chicago gets a power play for another 55 seconds. 58 seconds. Jeez, my writing is atrocious sometimes. But that would end off the first period. Second period, Bedard starts the period off with Dangalicious, and what a save by Reimer. 16:36, however, it's a Detroit off-the-post one-timer and in goal. Elmer Soderblom, the 6'8 forward, first of the preseason from Lombardi to make it 3-0. And at 15:08, so a minute and 28 seconds later, Detroit one-timer blast goal from Anthony Tomisto, first of the preseason from Veleno and Casper, which makes it 4-0. At this point, I wrote down the Wings are dominating. With Johansson is just wide, not Johansson's, for that you know, it's Detroit's Johansson. And then at 12:16, Detroit scores again. It's a great passing one-timer goal from Michael Rasmussen, who gets his second of the game, third of the preseason from Comfer and Perron to make it 5-0. So Comfer got a couple assists. His night would not be over. And halfway through the game, the score is 5-0. 10:17, it's a Detroit penalty to Edmondson for for putting his hand on the puck. That was closing his hand on the puck. Jeez, it looked like I put a parenthesis and then losing. Closing his hand on the puck. Anderson had a big hit on Danielson and a scrum ensued, which would lead to a Detroit penalty to Mata for roughing, which would be killed. So it's 5-on-3 for 135. And Bedard would not shoot the puck. Bedard frustrated me this game. He had a really good first game, and then this game he just would not shoot the puck when it came down to it. He just kept passing to Radish. Bedard, he had 71 goals in the WHL. You were doing something right last year. Shoot the puck. So that gets killed off. Ruse is denied. Rad shoots wide, and that's a 5-on-4 for 25 seconds because at 6:40, or it was at 6:40 is a Detroit penalty to Edmondson for tripping, which would be killed, which he was pissed off about. So then is the 5-on-3 for 135, 5-on-4 for 25 seconds, and then that would conclude it, and they did not score. So Comesso's in for the third period. And 14:56, Chicago finally gets on the board. It's Lucas Crevier, first of the preseason from Dickinson to make it 5-1. Zaitsev has a big hit. Radish has a break that's wide. And then all hell breaks loose at 14:04. So Vlasic knees Soderblom. It didn't look intentional. It looked like Soderblom and Vlasic conveniently skated into each other because there was no extension of the knee. They showed the replay. I analyzed it several times over. Vlasic ends up getting the roughing penalty, a game misconduct, and the kneeing penalty. So after all that, at 14:04, it's a Chicago and Detroit penalty. Vlasic for roughing and Edmondson for roughing. And 14:04, Chicago penalty to Vlasic would be served by Athanasiou for kneeing. And 14:04, Chicago penalty to Vlasic for a game misconduct. So it's a 5-minute power play for Detroit. At this point, I thought the score might have ended 10-1. Edmondson goes after Vlasic in the scrum. That's why that happens. Soderblom would leave the game, although he did look all right. He got up on his own, but it's just to make sure. It's precaution. You don't want one of your top prospects who's 6'8" going down. Then 13:43, it's a Detroit one-timer goal, so about 20 seconds after the power play starts, JT Compher makes it 6-1 with his first of the preseason from Rasmussen and Perron. That makes it 6-1. Danielson just ran rings around Bedard in the defensive zone, in the Chicago zone. And at this point, I'm like, Danielson was the number 10 pick. Bedard is the number 1 and the clear, phenomenal player, phenom. So what's going on here? And people were questioning when Danielson got taken high. I like Danielson. I didn't think he'd going to go 10th. I thought he'd go more around 14, 15. But the way he played in this game, I think he deserved it. 2:04 then, it's a Detroit penalty to... I don't know why I wrote Detroit penalty Kachuk. It is a Detroit penalty to Mata. Kachuk is not on Detroit for high sticking, which would be killed. And that would conclude the game. A very rough game, a messy preseason game, and one that I was not encouraged by. Bedard didn't look great. Team didn't look great, and they had a lot of regulars on their forward core in. Detroit didn't have Larkin. They didn't have Sider. They didn't even have their starting goaltender in Husso. All big names missing, and yet Detroit still dominated. This could be a change. And DeBrincat wasn't even in the lineup either. That's another person. So we'll see how Detroit goes this season. If they're doing this well, did Detroit play really well, or did Chicago play pretty bad? I think it was a bit of both. But you see all the veterans in the Chicago lineup: Athanasiou, Athanasiou, Radish, Reichel, who doesn't have a lot of experience, Kachuk, Entwistle, Anderson, Dickinson. But on the defensive core, you only have Zaitsev, and that's where it failed them last night, the defense. But that's going to be all I have for you guys today. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Only 3 more preseason games to go, and I hope to get that, and then the power rankings out as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.